Morris. I'm with CSI. I'm actually the president. And today we're going to cover iEmail, our best practices and overview. Right now you're all muted. If you have any questions along the way, you can go ahead and send them over, and we'll probably open it up to voice near the end. So first off, a quick thank you to everyone. Since 2006, when we first released iEmail, we've sold over 350 copies of it, which is pretty cool, if you ask me. Started with version 1. We're actually on 2.4 now. 2.5 is coming out pretty quick. We continue to listen to what you guys are saying and enhance it along the way. So it's important to us that we hear your suggestions, and I'm going to give you different ways to tell us how to do that. So ultimately, once again, thanks. Couldn't have done it without you. Our products are because of our end users. You guys drive us. You drive us to make them better, and we're really excited to do that. So thanks again. What are we going to do today? Well, got a little bump there in my agenda. History of iEmail. Why did we write it? How did we do it? Day in the life of an iEmail end user. What's new? And, hey, I didn't know I could do that. What's coming down the line right now? What's in the queue? How to get the latest version. Some tips on installing that. How to get help if you get stuck. Quick test at the end to make sure you're all paying attention. And if you hang up now, I still know everyone that was on this call, so I will call you back to just make sure you have that. And then we'll open it up for some Q&A, like I said. So why did we create iEmail? Well, basically, our customers needed a quick way to email from Outlook, and they needed to be well, their members and their prospects and all those fun things. And, you know, along the way, people created Microsoft Exchange integration. It was always complex. It rarely ran well over time. It'd work for a month or two, and then it would stop working, and ultimately it wasn't sustainable. Here at CSI, we are about sustainable products. We want them to work through the course of time. But even worse, if you had Exchange integration, someone would update the email address on the Exchange server and forget to do it in IMIS or vice versa. And so ultimately, you ended up with one email address in Exchange that was different than the one in IMIS. So that was really not a good thing. But customers also needed some other things. They needed a way to save both sent and received emails that came into Outlook to drop them into IMIS. They needed the ability to integrate the IMIS tasks to Outlook, and when they updated them in Outlook, have IMIS know about them. And then a simple calendar integration. Ultimately, I'll be honest with you, we added this last part for demos because it demos really cool that you can create a calendar entry in IMIS and have it appear in Outlook. I'm really not sure if any people out there actually use this. All right. This is a story I like to tell. Before we had iEmail, we would finish installing IMIS. We were pretty excited. We'd take the client live. We'd finish all the training, and we'd say, what do you guys think? And they'd go, wow, we love it so much. Hey, one thing you forgot to show me. You never showed me how to email my committees. I've got a bunch of committees, and I'm always emailing those people. And I'd go and say, oh, well, there's a third-party app that you have for that. And you just go into that, and you do kind of a blast email to your committee. And they would come back and say, but I use Outlook when I email. I don't go into a third-party app. I'm in Outlook all day long, and that's where I email from. And so it kind of left us in a bad position. We had just sold them a great system. We had just installed it. We'd spent 3 months with them, and they couldn't email. So that was kind of bad. So what did we do? We created an Outlook add-in that allowed people to email directly from Outlook using a simple search in IMIS, ad hocs, committees, events, views, IQAs. And then we said, hey, let's allow Outlook to write to IMIS for emails, both sent and received, as well as, you know, task and calendar synchronization. So that sounded pretty cool. And then we tried to keep it simple along the way. We're always questioning, do we need to add that option? And if so, what's the quickest way to add it? I really hate a whole bunch of setup options. There's plenty in iEmail. We're going to go over some of them today. But we want to keep it simple, and we want to make it sustainable. We want to keep it sustainable so that you can keep using the software product and love it. So Something we didn't do in the earlier session today, so we're mixing it up a little bit, and just a heads up, a copy of this webinar will be made online. So if you're not paying attention, you can review it later for the test. But I thought I'd take you through a day in the life of how we see iEmail used. And I just got a call from the venue, and we have an outing coming up, and they need to push the time back for the outing 1 hour. Turns out the venue is in the state of Texas in the United States. It's pretty darn hot down there, and they need to push it back an hour because it's so darn hot. And we've got to notify everyone who's registered for that function that there's a new time. And we really should copy the education committee because they're the ones in charge of all of this. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and save a copy of the email on all of the attendee records because we need some sort of proof that we let them know this was being pushed back. So let's do it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to jump into Outlook. This is where I do my work, and I'm going to send a new email. Got my lovely IMIS button here. I'm going to click on that. And what it's going to do now is it's going to pull up iEmail. I'm going to jump over to my event. My event is my 13th annual NIAG San Antonio. The function that's being moved back is my Alamo tour. There it is. I have 7 attendees registered for it, and here they are. So let's take all these people and let's send them an email. And I don't really want to share their email address, so I'm going to blind carbon copy. But if you remembered, I needed to put the education committee in there. So I'm going to jump over to committees. I'm going to click on education, and here's my education committee, and I'm going to go ahead and carbon copy those people. I'm done here. I hit save. I'm sitting in my email, and I can say something like the Alamo tour is now at 7 p.m. Type in some stuff here, whatever else I might want. I'm all ready to go. I can hit send, and it's going to fire off like normal, or I can say send and insert activity. As you remember, I wanted to have this on everyone's record. So I hit send and insert activity. It has found all of those people in the database. It's going off the 2. There's my message. Here's my activity detail. It looks good. When I hit save here, that's going to be inserted on all of their records as well as sent out. So very powerful. You know, that's exactly how we want to use iEmail, right then and there. I'm not going to send those out to a bunch of fake people. But that's what we're looking for in iEmail. That easy to use, that simple, that straightforward. Well, how about another one? Well, in this case, Zach has just sent in his resume. We need this resume because he can't be on the committee until we have his resume. And so let's save Zach's resume in IMIS, and then let's create a task for Doug Morris to call him. That's me. And I'm really bad at remembering things, so we're also going to go ahead and put it on my calendar. Okay, so let's see what that looks like in iEmail. Here's my inbox. There's Zach's resume. It came in. I'm going to jump up here to iEmail and say insert that activity. It has found Zach based on his email address in IMIS. If it did not find him, if it did not find his record in IMIS, I could have used the find button here and then actually found him there. There's the message that's being inserted, and here's the activity detail. I'm actually going to go ahead and switch this to a different activity type, which we're going to cover in a minute. It's actually not a welcome email. Let's make that a resume email. So it's going to create a new type of activity out there. And I hit save, and it's going to drop that right into IMIS. So let's go into IMIS on Zach's record real fast here. And what we want to look up, so let's pull up Zach's record. And there it is. And then we can go ahead and see, here's the resume activity that I actually dropped right into IMIS. And there's the attachment that is his resume. It's all been brought right into IMIS. That's great. Let's go ahead and schedule a call for Doug, okay? So I'm going to go over to calls, and I'm going to click right here, and I'm going to say I've got a new call. It's for today, and please call Zach. He is ready for the committee appointment. All right, that's great. I'm going to assign it to Doug Morris, and he should follow up maybe tomorrow or maybe today. I'm going to just put it in today. Sorry for those of you from down and under. I still have my dates set to the American style. I realize we're the only ones in the world that do that, but the last time I switched my dates to Australian style, I never got them back. So there we go. I've created a nice task. It's on Zach's record. assigned to Doug Morris. And let's go ahead now and do one more thing. Let's go and create an appointment. And so this is the appointment side of iMail. And I'm going to create an appointment maybe on the 25th. And please call Zach. So I've not only made a task that I'm going to bring in Outlook, but an appointment wants to be on committee. I'm going to assign to Doug Morris. I can create a start time. Remember, this is going to go right on Doug's calendar, 11 a.m. And I can create a duration, and it's going to be a quick call, maybe 30 minutes. And I can create a reminder. It's going to show up about 15 minutes ahead of time. I've added those two activities in IMIS. And now back into Outlook. If I say synchronize tasks, I'm logged in as Doug Morris. So if I say synchronize tasks, there it is. There's the first task it wants to bring in. And I can go ahead and import that task. And now that task will be in my Outlook. And when I mark it complete in Outlook, I'll just resynchronize, and it'll be marked completed in IMIS. And finally, here's my import appointments. There are none for today, but if I look at tomorrow, there's the one from Zach. So it's going to go ahead and take that appointment and drop it right onto my calendar. So these are iEmail in use as we see iEmail used. I suspect many of our customers do a lot of very different things, but it's a start. So wanted to show you that. We didn't do that this morning. I think it's pretty powerful. We sometimes assume that our customers know all the features of our modules. In fact, that's why we're doing this webinar now. I spent some time with some customers this year, and I was surprised that not only were they on very old versions of our modules, and they were paying the annual software update fee, but they didn't realize all the great things that we had added over time. And so let's look at what we've added, okay? We completely rewrote iEmail late last year, I believe. I'm sorry, early in 2013, maybe late 2012. And we were looking to support a couple things. First off, hosted environments. Many of you are moving to a hosted environment, and in a hosted environment, you don't really want to remote into a terminal server just to get your Outlook just to run iEmail. So we knew that people had Outlook on their workstation, and maybe they remoted in to use IMIS, but that's the way it is. So we have to be able to support that. So we rewrote it for that. We wanted to be able to support other email clients. What's another email client? That means you're not using Outlook. Remember, you can use Outlook and connect it to Gmail or Office 365, but maybe you want to use a different client, and that might be the Gmail interface, the web interface. And so we wanted to be able to support that, and we needed to rewrite iEmail for that. You saw in that last example, I actually chose a different activity type. People were asking. They said, I want to save these emails, but I want to be able to categorize them. I want different activities. So that's what we did. We wrote it to support multiple activity types. And then how about lookup tables? We want to be able to support lookup tables for email inserts to further categorize the activity in IMIS. What's all that mean? Well, a hosted environment, iEmail really is three components now. It's a web service that goes on your application server. It's an IQA web service that also goes on your application server. And finally, it's an Outlook client. I'm pretty fancy with the Internet here. You're going to see some amazing stuff that I got off the Internet for this webinar. There's your IMIS in the cloud, right? So I'm just going to call it IMIS server with web services. It doesn't have to be in the cloud. It could be down the hallway. It could be anywhere. It could be at your office. But now with iEmail version 2, you can use iEmail and Outlook wherever you want. So there's a cool picture of a lady using iEmail on a fake lawn. So that's pretty cool. That was the only picture I could find on the Internet of someone actually working not in an office environment. So I spent a whole 4 minutes trying to find that image, but I found it, and there you go. So that's iEmail now, and that's why we can support a hosted environment. You can be anywhere you want using Outlook, and it can connect to your IMIS database, which is in the cloud or at your office, and you can grab all of your data that way. Multiple activity type support, you saw me do this, right? When I went to insert Zach's resume, I clicked on the little activity type there, and boom, I had 3 other activity types that I had created, and I was able to make that a resume if I wanted to. So in this case, I inserted Zach's email into my IMIS database as an activity type of e-resume, an electronic resume. I didn't have to insert it as an email. I can even do lookup tables. In this case, maybe it's a welcome email, and I've got a department that I want to assign. So iEmail now supports the ability to select via a lookup table. In this case, maybe I want to actually assign it to a certain department, and so you can do fun things like that as well. I know what you're saying. How did you do that? OMG. Well, once again, we're recording this, so it's important that you have this stuff. This is all in the manual, but I thought I'd cover how easy it is to do this. First thing I needed to do is I had to create a new activity type in IMIS. And there is, someone asked earlier, well, can I use an existing activity type? And yes, you can. But in this case, I made a new activity type. So maybe I made a welcome email activity type, and I filled out the fields that need to be on there. All right? Next thing I did, I added any required lookup tables that I needed. So in this case, I wanted to have the department be a lookup table. So there it is. I've added that lookup table. And notice that's called email welcome / department, which just so happens to match here. It's my activity type of email welcome, and then the lookup was department. The next thing I did was I configured iEmail for the new activity type. I went into System Setup, and I clicked on the Activity Type button. And when I did that, I saw this. And I was able to choose that I wanted welcome email welcome, to be available to iEmail from now on. So I did that, which is pretty neat. After that, really, I just recycled my application pool, and that's done really easy just by the web system setup in iEmail, and I'll show you that in a second. And I hit Recycle Application. Then I went and celebrated. I rocked my users. I went and told them, hey, we're ready to go. This is awesome. So it's that easy to go ahead and add these. Well, how did I do that? Well, I went into the system setup, right? And so this is the section we call, hey, I didn't know that. Your system setup's available both from the Insert Activity screen and the address book. You do need to be a level 8 for system in IMIS. But once you do that, you can go into System Setup, and once you're there, you get to see all these fun things here. And there are options that are out there to make your life easier and your coworkers' life easier. The first thing you see is the ability to turn off any or all or some of these search tabs. Notice that I can turn off the ad hoc search, the committees, the events ad hoc. I can turn off the views or the IQA. So maybe you don't want people using events for emails via Outlook, so you can actually shut that off. However, you can enable them for certain users by giving them an access keywords. So if I uncheck Enable Events here, nobody can see my Events tab in iEmail. However, if I give someone the iEmail event keyword, they can then see it. So I can actually granularly control who has access to my tabs. Notice there's a little star here, one of our next features that's actually out in beta right now. You're going to be able to turn off the actual search in iEmail. So I know that sounds funny, but we actually have some people that want this search tab off because they want their chapters. They have the chapters that use iEmail, and they don't want them searching the whole database. They only want to give them access to certain IQAs that they have permission for. And since iEmail will respect those permissions, they're just setting it up. So the only thing they have is Query Architect, and they do all of their searches from there. So we're going to be adding that as well very soon. You can also have iEmail search on just the primary chapter. In IMIS, when you create a when you add someone to a chapter, I don't know if you've noticed, it creates a subscription record. And the reason is that you can belong to multiple chapters. We have users that say, I don't care how many they belong to, I only want them searching the primary chapter. If you turn that on, iEmail, when you choose chapter, is only going to look at named chapter instead of the subscriptions table. So a little hidden thing that may be powerful to some users and not others. You can control what committees show in iEmail. So down here in committees, once I click on the committee selection, I get this, and I can control it by group or actual committee name. I always joke in my iEmail demos that I don't want my staff being able to email my board and tell them what a terrible exec I am. So you can actually hide certain committees from iEmail so that people at your organization cannot email them. Pretty powerful. Custom views. Maybe you have a very complex search and you have a custom view out there, you can actually go out there, add a custom view. I went and added the name all. What fields should they be able to see, and where does iEmail pull the email address from? So that's powerful as well. Here's a good one. You can and you should limit the number of recipient email addresses that iEmail can drop into Outlook. The reason? iEmail is not a mass emailing tool. We've had people send thousands of emails with it. And it's really not sending it. It's your Outlook sending it via your Exchange or your Gmail server or something like that. So you can set that limit as high as you want. We tell people that iEmail should be used for what you would normally use Outlook for. And our best practice is to say about 200 people is the most you would ever want in there. But you can adjust it to whatever you want. As I said, we've got people that use it for about 5,000. Right below that is my email format style. So as I'm inserting the email address into Outlook, what does it look like? You'll see here, here's a regular standard one. So email is the default for iEmail, and it's going to put just the email address in. But if I put it in last first, it would look like this. And if I did first name, last name, it would look like this. You can actually control how it looks when you're inserting the email address into Outlook. Notice there's a category right there on email welcome. Well, that's easy. That's been there for a while. It's actually in version 1. And what that does, when you have that, you can actually have a lookup table. And the way I turn that on is I enable the product code feature right here. Once I turn on this product code, I then look at my email welcome and say, okay, it's called category. I then create a lookup table, email welcome / category, and now I can actually categorize my emails via that category. So once again, it'll look like this. So I can put a category on there. You saw me use a department down below on a different one. This is turning on a category for all of them. So pretty cool there. How about this? This is pretty good. You know, and kind of the last interesting thing here, you can set the route path for IQAs. So if you're getting into IQAs and you realize how powerful they are, and you realize it's really a pain in the butt to go through all these menus just to get to where I want my end users. I have all my custom IQAs in one folder. You can set that in iEmail, and then when they click on Query Architect, they're actually brought right in there. So in this case, I've set mine to the event search. And when I click on the Query Architect, I'm right in there. I don't have to dig down and whatnot. So pretty cool there. What else did we add? Well, we added support for Outlook 2013. We added support for 64-bit versions of Outlook. Support for IMAS 20, of course. And then I think some people don't know this. You saw the lady sitting on her lawn. She probably doesn't have IMAS on that laptop. She probably remotes into it at work. But she does have Outlook. Well, you do not need to install IMAS on the machine. You can just install Outlook, of course, which is already on there, and iEmail. So IMAS does not need to be on your machine for iEmail to work. All right, catch your breath while I take a drink of water here. Well planned. What are we adding next? Well, we're going to add the ability to edit the activity before you insert it in IMAS. So we've had this requested before by someone we really like who's always pestering us for good ideas. Name shall remain nameless, MJ. And you're going to be able to select that you want certain fields edited. So here I am inserting a email resume, and it was forwarded to me, and it says My Resume. You'll be able to edit that subject line in the insert activity to change it to something like Doug Morris Resume. So rather than inserting into IMAS and then having to go into IMAS and change that subject line, you can actually do it right on the fly. And you'll be able to control which fields are editable and whatnot. We're going to add the ability to search on the views and possibly other tabs in iEmail. That was a feature that actually was in version 1. It got left out, and Carmen at the IAFF has been begging us to return that, and I think we're going to be adding that in very shortly for her. So if you have a custom view, you can search within that view. I'd like your input, and I'm going to give you my email address at the end, or you can fire it off in a comment right now. How about Gmail integration? Is that something you guys are looking for? You may or may not know we actually have that available in beta. So it's a web page you light up, and iEmail will integrate fully with the Gmail client. Remember, you can use Outlook attached to Gmail. In fact, what you're seeing right here, when I show you my Outlook, this is attached to a Gmail. I'm using Gmail. Right now, you just have to have an Outlook client. But we do have beta support for Gmail web client. And then we're also kind of curious if you're looking for Outlook 365 web integration. Are you interested in that? Is that something you want? Remember, we use Office 365 right here at CSI, and iEmail works great with it. It does not work with the web client, so if I go in from home or whatever and just want to use a browser. So we're looking to see if people are interested in that. So that's on our horizon. Feel free to email me afterwards. So you like what you saw and you want it. Well, the first thing you got to do is figure out what version of iEmail you're on. And you can go to Help About iEmail when you're in the address book, and you'll see the version. Now here it gets a little tricky, okay? Because if you remember, iEmail is made up of a web service or web services and the Outlook client. And really what you have to match is this second number. They have to match. And the reason we do that is we don't want to be updating the web services all the time because they're a little trickier to install than the Outlook client. And maybe you just want to install the updated Outlook client on one machine and not all of them. Basically, the way this works is if your web services are at 2.3 point something, then you can install any 2.3 version of the Outlook add-in. But if you're sitting on the web services 2.1 or 2.2 and you want something that's in iEmail version 2.3.4, you can't have it unless you upgrade your web services. So if you're on 2.3, those are your supported client versions, and once you get to 2.5, those are your supported client versions. So it's a little tricky, but we wanted to kind of cover that. I hope that makes sense. Feel free to ask a question if it doesn't. And if you're ready, let's go and see what version might be available. And how do we do that? That's easy. We go out here and we log into IMAS. So ASI is the provider of iEmail in terms of sales as well as license keys. So if you log into IMAS and you enter your credentials, you go to Releases, you go to Third-Party Products, you click on iEmail, and you'll see the current release out there as well as the previously archived releases. In this case, you'll see 2.4, and if you're actually sitting on the web service of 2.3, you could go to previously archived and download a different 2.3 that would work on your laptop or your machine or your whatever it might take. The client's pretty easy to install. Okay, there's just a couple rules there. You got to make sure Outlook is closed. You have to choose the appropriate client. I'm going to talk about that one second. And when you do that, you right mouse click and say Run as Administrator. You got to know if your Outlook is 32-bit or 64-bit. If you go to Help About, it'll tell you 64-bit. When you do that, you go and say, all right, that means I'm going to install my Outlook 64-bit add-in. That's the hardest part, and everyone messes it up. It's really not that hard, but that's the most important thing to know when you're installing the Outlook client. Server's a little trickier, however, and ultimately it normally requires some IT assistance. It's not an end-user install. It's kind of like an end-user trying to install IMAS. There's server components involved. We've tried to make it as straightforward as possible, and we give you 4 pieces of documentation when you download iEmail. All right? Most importantly is the README. If your IT people are installing iEmail and they're like me and they don't look at the manuals, please, please, please at least have them read the README. That will at least get them going in the right direction. We do give you a full installation guide. We have a full-time QA and documentation person at CSI, and she's always busy trying to make these guides as good as possible. We're always willing to listen to feedback, but that's the guide that tells you how to install it. And when you don't read that and try and install iEmail, and it doesn't work, you go ahead and fire up the iEmail version 2 troubleshooting guide. Every time we run into an issue that someone has got themselves into, we try and add that to our troubleshooting guide so that you can get yourself out of trouble. So if you're trying to install this at midnight or 4 in the morning and you need to get it running before everyone gets into work, you can look at that troubleshooting guide, and you've got a really good chance that your issue is in that troubleshooting guide. And then once you get it all working, you can give out the iEmail version 2 user guide, which is for the end user, shows all the great setup options we have and all of those fun things. You're going to also possibly need a new license key. If you're on iEmail version 1 and you want to go to version 2, you're going to need a new license key. We changed the way iEmail is licensed from a key perspective, and you got to get that. In order to get that, you email ASI at asiorders@advsol.com, and they will give you a new license key. Say, hey, I'm upgrading to iEmail version 2. Can I please get a new license key? But if you get stuck, that's okay. We've got unlimited support here. Don't call ASI. Just go ahead and email us, but not until you've read that darn troubleshooting guide. Spend a lot of time on it, please. But even then, if you're stuck, go ahead and email us at support@csiinc.com. That's how you get help here at CSI. Include as much information as you can, such as a screenshot. I like to say a screenshot is worth a bazillion words. There's so much in screenshots. I remember helping someone one time, and we just could not figure it out, and they finally sent me over a screenshot, and I realized they, judging by the screenshot, they had installed the product on the wrong server. So I was telling them the wrong URL. When I saw the screenshot, I could tell it was wrong. What versions of the software you're trying to make work? What version of iEmail, Windows, SQL? What versions of the workstation? Is it Windows 8? Is it Windows 7? Anything like that. And then detailed steps of how you got there. What did you do to put yourself in this predicament? You know, I installed this, I did this, I copied this, and I'm here. So the more information you can give us, the better. We're running at about, well, we're not running about 2 days, but our guaranteed response, or our promised response, is within 2 business days. You will hear back from us. We might ask for WebEx. We might give you the answer, whatever. Today, we're running closer to 1-day turnaround. But, hey, who knows after these webinars, maybe we're going to get really busy. Most importantly, you know, don't send an email in at 8 in the morning and then send another one at 10 saying, why has no one responded? So about a day to up to 2 days to get back to you. Here's some silly questions people ask. Hey, I got a great idea for an enhancement, Doug. You haven't thought about it. I can't believe it. How do I tell you about it? Just email us at support@csiinc.com. Any requests for enhancements go into our ticketing system here. They are scheduled for me to look at once a month. At the end of the month normally, I go through them. If they make sense, we'll schedule them. We'll always let you know, hey, it didn't happen or it's going to be added. Sometimes we wait until we've got a couple enhancements queued up. Sometimes an enhancement might require an upgrade to the web services, in which case it's going to be, you know, probably only happen twice a year. But we'll let you know what the status is. If you want to find out about more events like this that we're adding, you can go to our website at csiinc.com/webinars. That's got all of these. We're doing these for each of our products, by the way. And so if you want to see any previous webinars, same one. And then if you're like, hey, this is so great, but I want to show my staff iEmail, you can actually go to our YouTube channel. Actually, if you just type in YouTube and Computer System Innovations, it'll take you there. We've got demos of most of our products. We're going to be having Zach update those in the near future. So, but there's some core ones out there that'll get you going on all of those. So pause for a minute. Any questions out there? You can raise your hand or type it in. If you raise your hand, I'll unmute you or whatever. Best question we had in the early morning session was that, you know, can I use my existing activities in iMess? And yes, you can. You do not need to create special ones for iEmail, but nothing wrong if you create new ones or use existing.
So far, I don't see any questions.
All right, that's good. No questions. I like it. All right, means I did a good job.
Absolutely.
I want to thank everyone for this. My email address is on the screen right now. And there is a question, a good friend of mine who's on this webinar wants to know if I did something awesome for my 20th anniversary, which was today my 20th wedding anniversary. And Rick, I took my wife out to lunch, and now I'm going to take her and my son out to dinner and open one of those fancy bottles of champagne that one of my staff got me a couple years ago. So I'm looking for a reason to open that good bottle. So I guess I made it 20 years. So yes, that's what I did. My email address is on the screen. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot them to that email address. If I don't respond within a day or two, feel free to submit it again. As I said in the demo, I'm very good at missing emails and tasks, so just go ahead and send them over. Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time. I hope you got something out of this. Feel free to send me feedback, and we'll go from there. Thanks again.